Okay.
Hi.
Awesome. Welcome everybody to our team call. We have a very, very special guest tonight who I'm super excited for you guys to get to know. Michael Alley is a senior sales coordinator are you Denver, Colorado? Is that where you're at?
Close. Yeah. Metro area.
Metro area. Okay. Which I learned recently, Denver is a really big place because I flew in there and I was trying to communicate with somebody that I knew and she's like, well, that's about 2 hours from where I live. So I understand it's a bigger area, but Marie's on the phone actually from Denver as well. And she's also in your space and area. And I have to just say, you guys, Michael and I got to know each other over the summer a little bit, a lot better, I would say, actually. And, and one of the things, there's so many things that I admire about you, Michael, but one of the things really is just your perspective on this business and how you really see it for what it is and what it can bring to all of us. And I would love so much for you to share your story tonight and really talk to us about, what it is that you're building and how you see this playing into a strong financial future.
Yeah, I love it. So I'm going to clear my throat a lot for some reason. I had like food poisoning last week and something. I don't know, it's lingering, but anyway, well, to start, like, what does this business do for you? It allows you to heal, like to just be able to take the time and say, yeah, today's not a good day and I just don't feel good and I don't have to do it. And that's cool. Let me start with my story though, because it's pretty powerful, I suppose. And it continues to evolve, but I'm 24 years old and I'm going to unplug my computer really quick. Cause one of the things that Melissa and I were talking about when we were hanging out over the summer was that I see this business as an awesome way to create a life and an income and that there's some barriers, I think, for a lot of people. And I see that within my team too. I've gone through, there's at least 200 people that I have in my downline that are not, it just doesn't click for them in that way. And so it's got to be common, I think. And hopefully the more that we talk about it and inspire each other, the more that we can overcome it. But like I have this beautiful home and like you can see there's an archway here and I don't know, my dining room. And I'm 24 years old and I live in this 2,800 square foot home in a really nice neighborhood in Thornton. And I do it with my Juice Plus income. And so I say that not to brag, but just to show you that it's an opportunity. And so for me, it's not all about money though. And so I'll start with my story now so you can kind of understand. I was sick growing up as a kid. I had asthma. I had underdeveloped lungs. I had meningitis when I was a baby. I was overweight and I grew up in a sick family also where people were dying of diseases now are completely preventable. But the reason that they were so sick is because of a few things. Number one, we don't know what we don't know. And number two, we didn't have a lot of money. And so the choices that we made and the things that we ate and the opportunities that we had were less than, I think, what they could have been, or maybe we just didn't have the education to kind of capitalize on what we did have. I don't know what the reason really is, except for that I know all of those things together created a very, very sick family. And I was born into a young family. My mom was 17 when she was pregnant. And my dad, they just didn't know what they were doing. Neither of them finished high school. And so I would spend a lot of time with grandparents and aunts and uncles. And those were the people that I started to identify with as other parents, right? I was just so close to them. They were like my second parent, my third parent. And those are the people that died starting at 8 years old. It was my aunt who I was just so close with. I came home one day and I remember another aunt of mine, nobody was home and they wouldn't let me go to the hospital and watch this because I was the closest person to her. But even my sister, who was 4 years old, was able to be there. But it was this moment where she was at the hospital dying and I didn't know until later. But that was the first experience that I had of losing somebody very, very close to me. And I was 8 years old, and that continued up until the night I turned 17. And actually, even just not this year, but last year, my grandpa died in his 60s. But my grandma, who I was really, really close with, died the night I turned 17. We had to help make a decision, and I remember standing around her hospital bed, and they pulled a plug on life support, and you watch her take her last breath, and that was a very interesting moment. Being 17 years old. And so that's when I decided that I wanted to make a difference in this world, not because for like a vengeance or anything like that, but because I would sit in hospital waiting rooms my whole life and watch these doctors bring hope and excitement and joy back to families. I'd sit there in the waiting room and I'd watch a doctor come out and tell the family that something went right. And then the family would just erupt like they just won the Super Bowl or something. And it was amazing. And then our experience was different. We had to pull the plug and kind of watch her take her last breath. And And so, I wanted to be on the other side of that because I've lost 4 of those people. I'm only 24 and I've lost 4 of those people that meant the world to me. And so it's just unique. It's a unique perspective. And that's why I got involved in the healthcare field. I went to college, studied 3 majors, 3 minors, and became the top student, all honors valedictorian, going full ride scholarships for medicine at the number 3 medical school in our country. And started a couple nonprofits along the way to serve and give back to the community. I was so good in the nonprofit world that I was nominated and chosen by Joe Biden and Obama and flown to the White House a few years ago and had dinner around Joe Biden's pool. And she was honored. There was military. It was just amazing, just being the young leader that I was. And so why was I so good at that? Because I didn't come from a family where that was more modeled. It wasn't at all that my parents or anybody was like that, right? Remember, they didn't finish high school and we were poor, didn't have anything. I think it was because I had this deep passion for other people. And so I knew that if I was going to make a difference, and I knew that if I was going to continue the scholarships, and I knew that if I was going to get into the schools that I wanted to get into, I had to be the best that I could be. And if you want to be a doctor in this country, you just kind of have to be. And then I found out about Juice Plus. And long story short with that is I'm no longer on inhalers. So I don't have acne anymore. I'm 70 pounds heavier or lighter than I was. And my grandmother, who is still alive, thankfully, the only one, right now, basically most of my family is on drugs, dead, or in prison. And there's a few of us, there's 6 of us that get together for Christmas and Thanksgiving. But she was super sick. The night my grandmother died, we had to watch her take her last breath. This other one was also on life support for kidney failure, but she pulled through and the other didn't. And so her kidneys were failing because she had been diabetic for so many years, and she'd been on a lot of pain meds because she had like 16 back surgeries. And so when I found out about Juice Plus, I was already in school studying nutrition and stressing myself out about how do I help her, because she's on disability income, and I was buying her groceries and just doing everything that I could to get her healthy food. And then all of a sudden this teacher shows me Juice Plus and says I can get all these foods in a capsule, and it just blew my mind. And I watched my grandma 10 months from the day I bought her Juice Plus and the Complete go from diabetic and on dialysis to she's been off of insulin after being 22 years diabetic, and she's not been back to the hospital ever in the last 3.5. The only reason I quit school, even after I quit right in the middle of it, believe it or not, after all that work, I just gave it up and I just never went back. The only reason I did that is because I started to grow a small team, and I grew this small team of people, like one of which was Lydia, the lady that helped personal train me to lose the weight that I lost. She was at risk of losing her apartment because she wasn't making enough money as a trainer. And then I had other friends that I had sold this dream to as this business, and they relied on me. Like they needed more money, and I knew what it was like to have nothing. And so when I realized that I had this gift, right, I was some smarts and all these things, and that I had signed these people up and sold them this dream, and then I was too busy in school to support them, I had to quit because I had to be there for them. And so the only reason I quit school, of course, there's an element of passion and purpose for the product because it's an amazing product and it's done amazing things for me and my family, but it was more so because there are people out there that really need me. And I've noticed that the more that I've gone through this journey and the more people that I've found that need something from me, whether it be health or finances, but as we build a team and we help people make more money, I have grown this amazing life. And we can circle back around to the house that I have. The only reason I have this house is because I care about people. I care about people enough to get over, the things that they might think about me or even the kind of the things that I might think about myself, because it was kind of a glorious life that I was creating. Image that I had for myself, but I love it so much because I know that every day I'm making a difference. And so why is it okay for me to make money in this business? Well, I think that there are a lot of families like mine that if they had even just another $500 a month, they might not be, if my family had $500 more a month, each person was making that, maybe they wouldn't have been so sick because they would have been eating a little bit better or whatever that is. And also, if somebody's making an extra $500 a month, they're also out there sharing with people. And if people were sharing with others in my family when they were sick, maybe somebody would have told us about Juice Plus when it wasn't too late. And so, when I think about making money, it always comes back to being connected to people. And it's such a simple thing because there's there are so many divorces and bankruptcies in this country that could be saved just by $500 a month. And how easy is it for us to help somebody else create $500 a month? Melissa has that awesome customer qualified sheet where you guys break it up with your HLP, the first 3, and then you go to your 12 for your 2000 plus, and then you continue on to 25. If you went to 40 on that list, you'd be making $647 a month as a virtual franchisee, or anybody would. And so imagine if somebody's going to lose their house, or if somebody's going to, if they're going bankrupt or even divorced or whatever, and you just show them that sheet and maybe extend it 15 more. Mm-hmm. And so incredible. But what about the more people that you do that for? Enough people creates an income. Vision, you don't have to want this much money. I'm sharing the business with them. I tell them, I can't find anything bad about this because I wake up every day and I'm making more money for myself. And that's great, because do I need $390,000 a year to live a life? No, not at all. But I like to have money because I love to give it away. I love to help people. I love to bring people to conference. I love to donate to shelters. I love to buy the person's carts behind me during Christmas and pay for their gifts. Like, those are the kinds of things that money can allow you to do. And also, though, I want to create a family or build a family and grow a family. And I want to do the things with my friends and my family that I have now that most people can't. And so I certainly don't need that much money for myself, but it allows me to do a lot for others. That's the one thing that I find that's good. But also, every single dollar that I've made is a reflection of another person who maybe didn't have to lose their grandma when it was too soon, right? Like, my slogan in this business is that I want to do this business so that I don't have to hear the words I wish I would have known about Juice Plus sooner, so that my brother, sister, mother, friend, cousin, whatever might still be here. And I can't guarantee ever for anybody, and especially because we're being recorded, that Juice Plus would ever be a cure for anything. But my gosh, I've seen so many things. And, fruits and vegetables are just God-given food on this planet. Vitamins are not, and Pringles are not. Those are made in the lab by somebody. And so I believe so much in food, but I can't guarantee it for anybody. But I know that every dollar that I bring in is a reflection of another life that was impacted. And then also, I'm helping people with finances, and people go to bed every night praying for better health or better finances. And I have an answer for both. And so I fearlessly and tirelessly and unapologetically share with people, because I believe that every time I do that, there's just nothing negative there, except for the kind of the self-talk and the doubts and all the things that that we all deal with, I think, in our mind. And so I guess
in your head, and they're connected, and Wendy, I know, is a mentor of yours, right. Wendy Campbell. And one of the things that she said to me that was a huge impact early on in the business is she said, the longest journey in this business is to go from your head to your heart. Mm-hmm. And when you get there and you lead with that, it changes everything. It really just everything just falls out of the way. All the obstacles remove, you just lead with that. And I see that in you. I totally, totally see that in you. I wanted to, is it okay if we open up for questions? Because I would love for you guys to get a chance to ask some questions of you. And I know we have some really, what's the word? Focused and driven people on our team, and just like you. And I would love to hear from you guys. Obviously this is a different kind of story we're bringing to you tonight, so it's probably going to touch on some different things, but I'd love for you guys to unmute yourself and go for it.
This is usually how I enjoy doing talks and events and things like this, is like, even when there's 300 people, like I'm training from a stage, I'm always asking questions, and it's interactive, because I can say, like, the example I always use is I can talk about diabetes at every single event, but if every single person in the room has only been touched by cancer, what good does diabetes do anyway?
Yep.
And so I like to talk to people about what they want to talk about, because then they're going to get something from it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You guys are all quiet tonight. What's going on? Are we shy? Diane, can I count on you? Where are you?
Me?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, I'm going to talk. Hi, Michael.
Hi.
I don't know if you remember, but we were on
I
Mars
do.
together.
I remember.
How are you?
I am awesome. Mars is so much fun, and I go back every month.
So inspiring. You were when we were together in Orlando. Now I again. So thank you for everything. Really.
Mm-hmm.
I have kids your age, and I do, and it's amazing. Like it's amazing
I hear it all the time.
to hear you talk. Like it really is great. So, you know what I wanted to know? Like, how do you listen to people? Like, how do you tell?
Do you just walk up to somebody random at the grocery store and say, "Hey, I'm this person," and just start vomiting on them, or do you ask questions or whatever? And so I've been praying and meditating and thinking and reading and watching videos, like trying to figure out like what's an answer to this question, because I don't know. I think the answer is just going to be, and I've done this many times with strangers, but it's always been like the right opportunity and that kind of stuff. I kind of want to go out there and create the opportunity now, and like it doesn't matter who you are. If you're in my path, you're going to hear about something from me. And so how would I think that I would do that best would be, I always start from a point of like, here's why I'm sharing this with you and it's uncomfortable, so here's an example. Let's say I met you and you're at the grocery store and you have a child. Mm-hmm. And I see that you have some fruit roll-ups in the basket, also maybe like a fruit squeezer and maybe some fruits and vegetables, but you seem a little uneducated about health. And so I could say, hey, I hope you don't mind me bothering you. It's actually really uncomfortable for me to do this, but I've lost a lot of people growing up, and I always wish that somebody would have had the courage to come up to me. It could be I could be at a gym and I could go up to somebody on the treadmill and say, "Hey, I noticed you're here every day. And this is so uncomfortable for me to come over here and bother you because I don't want you to feel like I'm bothering you. But I struggled with weight forever, and I really wish somebody would have just came up to me and offered to help." Mm-hmm. And kind of go on the same path and start to share your story. The reason that I think that I want to do it that way is because it makes a personal connection, but it also lets them know that I'm human and that I'm sorry, like this is uncomfortable for me, but because I care enough about you,
right.
I want to share this. Now, is it going to work? Most times I think so. I've done it. Like I went to Chipotle a while back, and there was a van that pulled up, and the mom got her son out of the van in a wheelchair, and he was like 8 years old. And so I just had to. Mm-hmm. And so I walked to the table and I say that exact same thing, and I'm sorry. And apparently he has spinal bifida, and she was so grateful to get the information. And so when I think about doing that, like approaching random people, because eventually our warm market runs out, right?
Right.
And also, again, I know there were people around me. Juice Plus has been around for almost 25 years, and my grandma was 17, so that's almost 8 years ago. So it'd been around for a while. I know there were distributors in my area. Are you fearing the things that are worth fearing? And what she meant by that was, am I fearing, they're gonna go home and say this person bothered me and I may never see him again? Or am I fearing, what if they're also going through the things that my family were going through? And what's the fear that's worth fearing? Because each decision that we make in that moment has a fear attached to it. And so I guess that's the way that I say I lead from my heart, is that it's so much bigger, that conversation that I want to have with these people, that I just tell them exactly that. So I think, and my team always asks me, what do I say to this person? What do I say to that? I want to say this, is what they'll say. I want to say this. And I said, well, say exactly that. Right. Because what they say is so heartfelt. And I just encourage all of us, when we want to share with anybody, people we do know, people we don't know, people we're getting to know, if you just start with your heart, that's going to be the best way to make the connection, I think. And I also think that there are defenses and their barriers come down when you let them know that it's uncomfortable for you, but you have to anyway.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. So much of it has to do with courage. And it's, it really is. It's finding that, because I think we all get that little tickle. Once you know about it, I think it's really hard to deny where who you're looking for, who you invite, and how you invite into your team. I think everybody does it a little bit differently, but I certainly think we can all benefit from hearing, what you do.
Yeah. Who do I target? Man, this has been tough because I identify with the LGBT community. And so my whole community is just so much different than most people. And we're doing like this equal rights movement, and everybody's just focused on other things, right? Like they're finally able to be themselves, and they just don't care about Juice Plus, honestly, for the most parts. And so I have learned that that's just not going to be what's going to build a big business for me. I've gone through hundreds of people within my community, and they sign the application and maybe they get their H&P, but they fall off. And so after some evaluation and looking at like who are the most successful people in this company anyway, it's generally young families. If you really look around, it's young families, or people who are struggling with an illness. And so I am looking to find actively people who, like could be young moms or young dads who have a reason to want to do this business, because I can sell I'm very good with words. It's just such a different conversation. And so I'm looking for people that need this. And instead of just telling everybody the same thing, that, hey, this, I can help you earn a bunch of money or whatever the script could be, it's going to be about asking questions for me and figuring out what do they need, and then packaging our opportunity, whether it be the product or the business, in a way that meets that need for them. And so when it's that way, I guess there's no specific group to look for, because I think everybody, if you ask them the right questions, you can figure out what they need. And it's also a level of discernment. I know now that I'm not like, you can just meet somebody and ask them some questions and realize if they're ready or not. But it took me a while to get to that point. But I want to focus on young families, because they're the ones that need it. And they're the ones that do the best anyway. You look at Jamie Kinsey and Casey Sloss and Wendy Campbell when she was going through this, and even Christine Averill and her young family, and Don Rathman, like everybody who is doing well are the ones that have the reason and the drive, and they want to be with their kids.
Yeah, I totally agree. Danielle, you had a question.
Okay, I keep going out here, and I've got can you hear me? All right, I'm on like multiple devices to try and make sure I get this. Sorry. Technology not at its finest tonight. Can you hear me?
Now you're frozen. Are you there?
I'm on like...
Yep, now I can hear you. Go for it.
Okay. So my question was, which I had messaged in case I couldn't get through. So what do you think in terms of your business, what do you feel has been really the most successful thing that you've done to grow your business, or maybe a combination of things you've done to grow your business?
Mm-hmm. The by far the most successful thing that I've done is just learn to speak from my heart. It really is. That's the only thing I think that is the reason that I do so well with people, is because I speak from my heart and I make them feel good. Like every person, because it's so hard. Like there's such a conversation. A mentor of mine who wrote a book, Nail It in 90, and she's worked with Tony Robbins, and she doesn't any longer, but she wrote this book, Nail It in 90, and she's very spiritual. And anyway, the way that she taught me was that there's a conversation going on energetically that we just don't feel, but it's a whole different conversation. And it really, like, I believe people can totally feel when you're coming from the heart, or when you're trying to, just lie. It was a year and a half ago at our boot camp in Colorado, and I trained for about 400 people. very fun, by the way. I got to follow Jay Martin and lead up to David Phillips. It was like so cool. Anyway, and it was, I left that. So I didn't plan for this speech very much. I put some slides together, just like tonight. I really didn't think about what I was going to talk about at all. And people they're like, well, how do you do that? Like, how do you stand in front of a room of 400 people and just talk? And it just comes out. And it's like, you practice it and practice it and practice it. And I just feel so confident in, the words that are going to come from my heart, and I let them flow. And Wendy, of course, is brilliant and says the words that need to be said will be said, and the people that need to be in the room will be there. And so I trust her and I believe that. And so I did this talk at boot camp and I didn't prepare for it. And it was like standing ovation, the only person that got the standing ovation. And people I got messages saying, of all these people, you were the best. You impacted me the most. And I thought, wow, that's amazing. And so I had this moments where I was validated for being myself. And that's really, and not all of us get that moment, but we also have to create it. It wasn't like it was handed to me. I had to go and make it too. But because I am just who I am and myself and who I want to be, people feel that. It's very authentic. And I think that's just been the number one thing that I could do. And if you evaluate and look at other people in our business, like Wendy and like even Melissa and anybody who's experienced success, they are pretty comfortable just being themselves and speaking from the heart too.
I think that's the wisest thing you could have said. And truthfully, I think I say this to you guys all the time too. It's like, if you just be you, right? Be authentic and let them know exactly how you feel. They're going to respond to how you make them feel more so than what's coming out of your mouth. Like, it's not like a script. And I love that about this business. It's that we're not scripted. We're not, there's no like punchlines or, I came from a sales world, so I had to unlearn a lot of that stuff, right? So it's like, but when you really can connect with people, a great example even is Janice, who's on the phone tonight. She and I met at church and she was there and we got connected over a need that her daughter had. And it was just, and she said, don't ever talk to me about the business. And I said, okay, I won't. And then she came to me and said, okay, talk to me about the business because I want to know, and it's funny how these things, when you really take that step together and you just care about people and just love on people, right? That's what leads us all the way here. We even have a gal who's jumping on the phone tonight, Daisy, who I got to meet today for the first time, which was so awesome. And she's really just checking out our business. And I said, well, come on this call and hear the heart of our business, hear the heart of the people that are involved, and you'll see, who we attract and what kind of community we have, because it really is a special one. And I think that, if I could just tack on to one thing that you said is just, if we could just illustrate that more for people and invite them in sooner and let them, really see the love that we all have for each other and on, in what we do, I think it's infectious, who could say no? So
it's funny because my team, I live with two of my team members, my best friends, and
cool.
And they're like, well, who's calling you? And I said, it's Melissa. I don't know any, that's all I know. I met her in Orlando and her name is Melissa. Like, I don't know anything else about her. We talked and stuff like that, but it's not like we were long friends and we've been having coffee and hanging out and that kind of stuff. And it's just this community that we live in of people where we just help and share and serve others. And I don't have to know who anybody is. And certainly none of you are going to benefit me at all in my pay line or anything like that. Mm-hmm. But to just be able to be here. And when I bring new people into this, at our last conference, even they said, what makes Juice Plus the product or the business? And the answer was the people.
Yeah.
It's totally the people. It's these people where we can all be ourselves. One thing that came to my mind, I don't know why, but I know that we get into this mode where like we want to be like other people and we want to emulate them. And I think that that's important. I've borrowed words just like earlier, you're a blessed, or they just come out from Wendy now, but that was the wrong one. But the words that need to be said will be said and the people in the room would be there and those kinds of things. I've certainly borrowed words, but I work with some of the top people in this company. I get to work with Don Rathman and Jamie Kinsey and Bob Samara and Wendy Campbell and Christine Averill and Julie Herbst and like just these incredible people, right? Like that I get to work with. And I'm so grateful for that because they teach me so much. And they really just arm me and equip me to serve other people better. But if I got stuck up in trying to be like them, I would never get anywhere in this business. And when I got started going to conference, my upline, my sponsor would say, you need to come to conference and listen to the millionaires so that you can learn how to do it like the millionaires did. And I thought, okay. So I went to the conference and I listened and I said, no, Karen, actually, I need to figure out how to be myself because every single person who's successful, none of them did it the same way. They all have different personalities. And so I thought, well, I don't want to be like any of them or do it like any of them. I want to, of course, learn the skill sets from them. But comfortable to be myself. But I don't know why I felt like bringing that up, except for some reason I was feeling like people might compare and think, well, I can't do this. I can't be myself. I can't be like that because I'm missing this, that, or the other. But there are a lot of things that you have that I don't have too.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the reasons I asked you to come on here, Michael, honestly, is because I want to illustrate for our, group of people how different personalities, different people, different parts of the country, different parts of the world, that's what's so beautiful about what we have, is that there's so much room for everyone. And every time we bring in somebody that's a little bit different than ourselves, we get stronger, and that's the way I look at it. It's, I take an inventory of my skill set and I know where I fall short. And then I lean on, my leaders to fill in the gaps, and if there's a space where I'm like, okay, I'm really short in this space, like I go out and I look for that person, because then I know together we've got it covered, and that's how we operate is, a strong team. But all right, well, are there any more questions, you guys? I don't want to cut this short if there's something that you want to ask him, but we are up to time and I want to respect everybody's evening too.
Michael, it's Linda. I just wanted to know, after you make the initial contact, how do you move to that next step? Do you give verbal information? Do you show them videos? What do you do to pull them in? Right.
I usually don't give them anything in that moment because I'm busy. Like, I'm not prepared, or of course there may be a situation where I would, but most of the time I'm trying to get their phone number. And that's really all I try to do, is collect phone numbers and names, and email too. If I can get email and phone number, that's the best, because I want to be able to remember something about them. I want to be like, so here's a good, something that I've done. Meet somebody, go to my car, I have their name and phone number in my notes app, and then I write down what I remembered about them and what I said to them. And then when I go home and I send them that email, it's personal to them. It's like, hey, I really loved your kid. I can't believe her birthday is just next week, or whatever we talked about, right? So that they feel important, they feel validated. I remembered them, and then I look for a video or a resource or something that was specific to them. And so if it was a pregnant woman, maybe I'm looking up Mutual Ray's pregnancy video. And so I don't like to do it on the spot because I can't, like, it's just not as powerful. And so I like to get their information and keep it. You can look up somebody's phone number and email on Facebook, by the way, and stalk them. And it's friendly stalking, but you can look at like the things that they like, for instance. And what if you find a person and they like St. Jude? Right. You didn't get that in the conversation. All of a sudden, like, they're not going to know, but you can say, oh, I work with this company, and by the way, we raised the most money for St. Jude, or something like that. But so I'm researching people, and this is, by the way, what companies do to you all the time. And so I just am, doing it myself, but I like to get that contact. And then another thing that I've done, and we're going to start doing this again, is we have of course, people have their customer Facebook groups, but we're going to have a prospect Facebook group where it's this very simple thing. Is I say, hey, I am involved in a healthy community, and we give out like free resources, and we do events, and we do smoothie recipes and workshops and like lunchbox planning things and all kinds of stuff. And it's just this free online community. Would you mind if I friended you on Facebook and added you to the group? And that's another thing, is I just connect with them on Facebook and let the group educate them. But the short answer to that is I don't want to do it there with them. I want to go home and think about it and figure out what are the right things to send to them.
Great. Thanks.
I saw a lot of heads go like, yeah, that's a really good idea. We should do that. All right. Well, Michael, thank you so very much for coming on and donating your time tonight. And, we're cheering you on. I mean, that's again, you guys are going to see him walk across the stage and, high five him and cheer him on. And I mean, it's so cool to get to know people through this intimate experience and then bring it to conference and really get to celebrate everybody as a whole. I love that so much.
Tell you what, I might be, I know so many people in this community, and I do these calls, and like I did a call a couple weeks ago, and they didn't introduce me with the bio. It was two women, and I forgot that I had met them and had experiences with them. But even one of them cried on my shoulders in Santa Barbara after an event, and I had forgotten. And so they introduced me, and they're like, Michael, I don't want to talk about your bio. I want to talk about what you've done for me and the times that, I sat at your events and you made me cry, or when I cried on your shoulders. And I thought, wow, I can't believe that I'm having this impact in this community, just by speaking. And so I can't wait to walk the stage, because I know that there's going to be thousands of people that I've worked with along the way, and we're going to celebrate together. that's the biggest fulfillment that I get from this is, of course, because I can sell a lot of Juice Plus or I can build a big team, but these calls arm you guys something. Somebody got something from this where they can maybe go out there and help another person, and that's really just expanding my life's mission in general.
Yeah. Very cool. Well, thank you so very much. We'll get the recording to you so you'll have that.
Thank you.
Thank you all for plugging in. I know we have a bunch of East Coasters, so you guys get to go to bed. Have a great night, everybody.
Thank you,
Michael.
Michael.
All right,
You
thank
guys.
you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.